In July of 1805, Napoleon Bonaparte was tearing through the European continent. He had just crowned himself King of Italy and annexed Genoa and Lucca. The greatest military threat of the 19th century was rapidly marching east toward the Russian Empire. When we look back at this era, we tend to picture it through the lens of neoclassical art, men with iron jaws and rigid postures, raising their swords in grand moral triumphs for the motherland. But Leo Tolstoy paints a very different reality. As the French army amasses power, the Russian elite in St. Petersburg gather at Anna Pavlovna Scherer's exclusive soiree. They aren't planning a defense. They are trading gossip, showing off their French fluency, and aggressively climbing the social ladder. Take Prince Vasily Kuragin. He's a man of high rank and serious influence, yet his primary concern as Europe destabilizes is securing a lucrative, highly paid diplomatic post in Vienna for his son. Self-interest, not national survival, is the engine driving this ruling class. Into this perfectly manicured room walks Pierre Bezukhov. He's a massive, awkward young man, the illegitimate son of a dying, fabulously wealthy count. He doesn't know how to enter a drawing room, he doesn't know how to leave one, and he completely ignores the delicate, unspoken rules of Petersburg society. Within minutes, Pierre drops a grenade into the conversation. He openly praises Napoleon, calling him a great man who preserved the best parts of the French Revolution. He defends the execution of a French duke to a room full of conservative, terrified aristocrats who view Bonaparte as the literal Antichrist. The St. Petersburg elite are aggressively maintaining an archaic hierarchy of polite smiles and whispered favors. They are completely insulated by their wealth, burying their heads in the sand while a modern, mechanized world prepares to knock their doors down. You might expect the young military officers, the men actually tasked with defending this empire, to take the impending conflict seriously. Instead, they spend their nights locked in volatile, alcohol-fueled chaos. The scale of the actual war waiting for them is massive, brutal, and freezing. The expectation is that these young men will charge bravely into the snow to meet the French artillery. But right now, their bravery is focused entirely on a window ledge. At Anatol Kuragin's apartment, a notoriously intense officer named Dolokhov takes a bet for 50 imperials. He climbs outside onto the sloped sill of a third-floor window, hanging his legs off the edge, and chugs an entire bottle of rum without holding on to the frame. The night escalates from reckless to criminal. Pierre and this group of officers get hold of a live bear, and when the police arrive to shut down the noise, the young men physically overpower the investigating officer. They tie the policeman and the bear back to back and throw them both into the Moika Canal to swim it out. These so-called warriors of Russia are pouring all their energy, immense wealth, and physical courage into fighting off their own self-destructive boredom. They are entirely unprepared for the reality of the violence heading their way. 400 miles away, Moscow offers a sprawling, organic counterpoint to the cold political calculation of St. Petersburg. It's a city of dense history, old money, and chaotic tradition. Here we find the Rostov family hosting a massive name day celebration. Their home is overcrowded, loud, and practically glowing with warmth and emotional openness. The Count invites every single person who stops by to stay for a lavish 80-person dinner. This graphic shows a balance scale tipping heavily downward, tracking the Rostov family's rapidly depleting wealth against their accumulating party expenses. They are continuously hosting lavish 80-guest dinners they simply cannot afford, effectively bleeding their generational estate dry to keep up appearances. Meanwhile, the Rostov children are completely insulated by their youth. The youngest daughter, Natasha, is busy navigating her first teenage crush, while her older brother, Nicholas, drops out of university to join the Hussars. Nicholas isn't driven by deep political conviction. He's chasing the aesthetic glory of the cavalry uniform and the romantic thrill of a charge. Even the most well-meaning, emotionally pure families are participating in the empire's economic decay. They are distracting themselves with financial ruin and adolescent romances, entirely oblivious to the French artillery rolling toward their borders. The defining conflicts of the Russian aristocracy take place far from the military front lines. They happen inside the dark, claustrophobic bedroom of the dying Count Kirill Bezukhov. The stakes of this specific deathbed are empire-shifting. Whoever inherits this estate gains millions of rubles and 40,000 serfs. Serfs are unfree peasants legally bound to live and work on the Count's land. It is a staggering consolidation of wealth and human capital. Meanwhile, Princess Anna Mikhailovna, an impoverished noblewoman, aggressively maneuvers her way past Prince Vasily and the Count's nieces. She forces her way into the dying man's quarters, determined to secure a fraction of that inheritance for her son, Boris. This is a woman who, just hours earlier, was reduced to tears because she had to beg a friend for 500 rubles just to buy her son's military uniform. That extreme financial desperation pushes her to use cutthroat, unseemly tactics right at the edge of a dying man's bed. Sitting quietly on the sidelines of all this maneuvering is Pierre, the chaotic, illegitimate disruptor who was just expelled from St. Petersburg for drowning a police officer, is now passively positioned to accidentally inherit this massive cornerstone of the Russian economy. As Russia steps blindly into the most destructive conflict of the 19th century, Tolstoy reveals his core thesis: the grand, sweeping narrative of geopolitical history is an illusion. The actual history of this era is being driven by deeply flawed, regular people, fixated on their own inheritances, their trivial parlor games, and their own pockets.